Seattle had the kind of rain that felt like memory, soft, gray, endless. The city was quiet, wrapped in a blanket of mist, as if it, too, remembered someone it had lost. Michael walked slowly down Pine Street, his leather coat damp, his breath clouding the air. Every year on this very night he came back here, to the same corner, the same street, the same ache. He stopped in front of a small cafe. Its neon sign still flickered the same way it had years ago. Rainy Beans Cafe. That was where he had first met Anna. A memory fragment. It had been raining that day, too. Anna had smiled beneath her small red umbrella and said, "You look lost, stranger." Michael had laughed. "Maybe I was meant to be found by you." One cup of coffee turned into shared mornings, shared dreams, shared lives. "Rain reminds me," Anna would say, "that even the sky needs to cry sometimes." And Michael would answer, "Maybe that's why I love you. You're like the rain, quiet, healing, endless." But the rain took everything one night. A car crash. 1 second, and Anna was gone. He was left holding their little daughter, Lily, in his arms, promising a future he didn't know how to live. "I'll keep her safe, Anna," he whispered that night. "I promise." But promises, he learned, can drown too. A year later, lost in grief and alcohol, Michael broke apart. Child Services took Lily away. She vanished into the system, into the world. And since then, every time it rained, Michael walked the same streets, listening for the echo of her laughter in the storm. Tonight marked 8 years since that night. Something inside him felt different, like an invisible voice had called him back. He pushed open the cafe door. The little bell jingled. Inside, the world smelled of coffee and wet pavement. Behind the counter stood a young waitress. Brown hair, calm smile, a light in her eyes that made his heart stop. He took a seat near the window. "Black coffee. No sugar," he said. She poured it, glanced up, and said with a faint smile, "You look like you've walked through a storm." He looked at her and whispered, "I've been walking through it for years." She brought the cup, hands trembling slightly. For a moment, silence wrapped around them, the kind of silence where time itself listens. Michael asked quietly, "What's your name?" She smiled. Lily Carter." The world went still. The cup slipped from his fingers. Coffee spilled across the table like dark rain. His throat went dry. "And your parents?" he managed to ask. She laughed softly. "I don't know. I grew up in foster care. Never met them." Michael's chest felt tight, too tight for breath. He wanted to scream, "You're mine," but he didn't. He just looked into her eyes, those same hazel eyes he once saw in a crib. He said only, "Sometimes coincidences are what's left of miracles." Outside, the rain grew heavier. The windows blurred with water. Lily wiped her hands, scribbled something on a napkin, and placed it before him. It read, "Sometimes people walk through storms to find someone waiting in the rain." When he looked up, she was gone. A shadow through the back door, leaving behind only the scent of coffee and something familiar. Something lost. Michael closed his fist around the napkin. His heart broke and began to beat again. He looked at the rain and whispered, "Anna, I think I found her. But how do I tell her who I am?" The rain didn't stop that night. Seattle's sky wept until dawn. Michael stood by his window, holding the napkin like a prayer. Every drop outside seemed to echo his heartbeat. Slow, aching, uncertain. He unfolded the napkin again. Sometimes people walk through storms to find someone waiting in the rain. Her handwriting was gentle, curved, just like Anna's. He closed his eyes. It felt like Anna's voice had found a way to speak through their daughter. By morning, the city looked washed clean. Shining streets, empty sidewalks, a gray peace floating in the air. Michael put on his coat, took his old wallet, and slipped a small photo inside his pocket. Anna and baby Lily on a beach, both laughing as waves touched their feet. On the back, Anna had written, "Forever, even in the rain." He touched the words softly and walked to the cafe. When he reached, Lily wasn't there. He waited anyway. The hours passed. Coffee turned cold. Finally, he went to the counter and asked, "Is Lily here today?" The manager shook his head. "Oh, Lily. She works evenings, mostly. You can leave a message?" Michael smiled faintly. "No, that's all right." He sat for a while, staring at the window, and then noticed a small folded note under the table. He picked it up. It read, "Rain makes everything look new, maybe even old hearts." Below the words, a small doodle, a coffee cup, and an umbrella. He smiled, just like her mother, he thought. That afternoon, while walking home, a poster on a streetlight caught his eye. Community art show Through the Rain by Lily Carter. His feet froze. His pulse stumbled. Through the rain. It was as if fate itself was whispering. That night, Michael went to the art gallery. Soft jazz played, lights dim and warm. Every wall was filled with paintings, windows with raindrops, lonely figures beneath umbrellas, and one painting that took his breath away. A little girl and a man walking in opposite directions, but sharing the same umbrella. Below it was written, "Echoes of what we lost." Beautiful, isn't it? The voice behind him made him turn. It was her. Lee. White shirt, damp hair, the same quiet grace that once belonged to Anna. "Yes," he said softly. "It feels like someone painted my memories." Lily smiled. "Maybe your memories and mine aren't that different." Michael asked, "Why do you paint rain?" She looked at the ceiling, thoughtful. "I don't know. Ever since I was little, rain made me feel safe, like someone's watching over me." Michael's eyes burned. He whispered, "Maybe someone is." After the show, they walked together through the drizzle. "Do you ever think about your parents?" he asked. "All the time," Lily said, looking up at the clouds. "I used to believe maybe they loved me, but couldn't stay, and I don't blame them. Sometimes life breaks people before they can love back." Michael swallowed hard. "You're wise for your age," he said softly. Inside, he thought, "Anna, our daughter grew up to be you." That night, he returned home with a strange calm in his chest. He knew. He didn't need a DNA test or proof. He just knew. But he also knew he couldn't stay in her life. He was a broken man, a ghost of the past, and ghosts don't belong in the present. Still, he made a choice. He would tell her. Once. Even if it shattered him. He opened the old diary he'd stopped writing years ago, the one he began after Anna's death. On the first page, it said, "For Lily, someday when the rain brings her back to me." On the last page, he wrote, "Tomorrow I'll tell her the truth. Even if it breaks me." Outside, rain started again. He stood by the window, listening. "Some storms," he whispered, "aren't meant to end. They just remind us who we lost." The morning sky over Seattle was the color of old steel, pale, silent, endless. Rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, as if the heavens themselves were waiting for Michael to speak. He hadn't slept. The diary sat on his table, still damp from the night before, its edges curled like tired memories. On the first page were words written years ago, trembling in faded ink. "For Lily, someday when rain brings her back to me." Today felt like that someday, and yet his hands refused to move. He stood by the window again, same view, same drizzle, same ache that had lived in his chest for 8 years. But for the first time, he wasn't walking alone in the rain anymore. Somewhere out there, his daughter was breathing the same mist, touching the same raindrops. He whispered, "Anna, I've found her." The wind pressed against the glass, almost as if it answered, "Don't lose her again." That evening, Michael went back to the cafe. He had the diary in his coat pocket, heavy like a secret that could break a heart. The cafe was quieter than usual. Jazz music hummed low from an old speaker, and the smell of wet pavement drifted in with the rain. Lily was there, behind the counter, tying her apron. She smiled when she saw him, that same soft, uncertain smile that made his heart ache. "You again," she said playfully. I guess the rain keeps pulling me back here, he replied. She poured him coffee, black, no sugar. Just like yesterday, she said. He nodded. It's the only thing that still tastes the same. Then after a pause, do you ever feel like life gives you a second chance? Just to see if you'll make the same mistake again? Lily looked at him curiously. Maybe, but maybe second chances aren't about doing things right. They're about finally understanding why you couldn't. Michael smiled faintly. She speaks just like her mother, he thought. They sat by the window. Rain blurred the street outside, turning car lights into glowing ghosts. Michael took the diary out of his coat, placed it on the table. This belongs to someone I loved, he said softly. She used to write about the rain, about a little girl who made her life brighter. Lily leaned closer. A little girl? He nodded. Her name was Lily. Her eyes widened slightly. Like mine. Michael's hands trembled. Yes, like yours. She reached for the diary, her fingers brushing against the worn leather cover. Can I read it? Michael hesitated. If you want to. Lily opened the diary. The pages smelled of old paper and salt water. Her eyes moved over the words. She has her mother's eyes. I can't hold her tonight. She keeps asking for Anna. I promised I'd protect her. But how do you protect someone when you can't even protect yourself? Her hands froze. The penmanship, it was trembling, desperate, real. She turned the page. If she ever reads this, I hope she forgives me. I hope she knows I never stopped loving her. The words blurred, not because of the rain, but because of her tears. She looked up at him. Who wrote this? Michael's throat tightened. I did. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Lily blinked, unable to breathe for a moment. You. He nodded slowly. I'm your father. The rain outside grew louder, almost angry, almost alive. Lily pushed the diary away, stood up. No, that's not possible. My father, he left. He never came back. Michael stood too, his voice breaking. Because I lost you. I wasn't strong enough, Lily. I was broken after your mother died. They took you away, and I didn't fight hard enough. Lily shook her head, stepping back. You could have looked for me. I did, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Every year on the street, every time it rained. Her eyes glistened, torn between anger and disbelief. Why now? Why tell me now? Because I saw you, he said, trembling. And I knew, I just knew. You laugh like her. You painted the same way. You were my miracle I didn't deserve. Lily's chest rose and fell, fast. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Michael's eyes softened. You don't have to. Just know that I'm sorry. For every storm I didn't walk through to find you. They stood there, two souls bound by rain and silence. The cafe was nearly empty now. Only the sound of raindrops filled the space between them. Finally, Lily said, I've spent my life painting people walking away in the rain. Maybe I was painting you. Michael's lips trembled. And I was walking through it, hoping someday you'd paint me home. Her eyes shimmered. For a brief moment she wanted to hug him, to let her heart forgive. But forgiveness is a quiet storm. It doesn't come all at once. She whispered, I need time. Michael nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. I'll wait. I've been waiting all my life. Outside, the rain slowed. Drops turned to mist and mist into silence. Lily picked up the diary, held it close to her chest. She didn't look back, but she didn't walk away fast either. Michael watched her leave, her silhouette fading into the wet, glistening streets of Seattle. He whispered into the night, Anna, I told her, and even if she never comes back, I've finally found peace. The wind carried his words away, and somewhere beyond the clouds, it felt like the rain finally stopped crying. Seattle was gray again, the kind of gray that felt like an unfinished letter. Michael sat in the same cafe where it all began. The rain whispered against the glass, soft and endless like an old prayer that refuses to fade. On the table before him lay a sealed envelope. It had her name written in trembling handwriting. Lily. Inside, it was everything he had left: a photo, a diary page, and a single line written with all the love in his heart. I was there when you took your first breath, and I'll be there in every drop of rain that touches your face. The door opened, and she walked in. Lily! Her hair was wet, her eyes searching. For a moment, she looked just like Anna. Fragile, yet strong, lost, yet full of light. She saw him sitting there and smiled softly. You left me a note, she said. At the gallery. Michael nodded. I wanted you to know the truth. Her hands trembled. The truth that you're my father? He looked down. The words he had carried for years felt heavier than ever. Yes, and I'm sorry it took me a lifetime to say it. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, thunder rolled. Gentle, distant, like a heartbeat in the clouds. I don't know what to feel, Lily whispered. Her voice cracked, like wet paper tearing in the rain. Michael nodded slowly. You don't have to forgive me. I just needed you to know. I never stopped loving you. Not even for a second. Tears slipped down her face. But her eyes, her mother's eyes, stayed on him. You should have come for me, she said quietly. I waited, you know? Every storm, every thunder, I thought maybe someone's coming. Michael's lips trembled. I tried, he whispered, but I was too broken to be anyone's father. Lily looked away. You still could have tried. Silence again. Rain fell harder. After a long pause, she said softly, Do you remember her? Anna? He smiled weakly. Every day. She's in the rain, in your eyes, in the way you laugh. Lily wiped her tears. I don't remember her face. I wish I did. Michael reached into his coat pocket and slid a small photo across the table. It was faded, a beach, a woman, and a baby laughing in her arms. That's the day we promised we'd never let go, he said. She told me, even if the world forgets, the rain will remember. Lily stared at the picture for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. She looks happy. She was, Michael said. She loved you more than life itself. The cafe had emptied. Only the rain remained, steady, constant, sacred. Lily stood up, clutching the photograph. Her eyes glistened, her voice calm now. I don't hate you, she said. I just wish time had been kinder to us. Michael's throat closed. He wanted to reach for her, but he didn't. He just smiled gently. Time doesn't heal everything, Lily, but love, it remembers. She nodded. Will I see you again? He looked out the window at the soft blur of rain. I'll always be here, he said. Maybe not beside you, but somewhere close. Every time it rains. That night, she left the cafe with the photo pressed to her chest. He watched her until she disappeared into the mist, a reflection swallowed by the storm. And then, for the first time in years, Michael felt peace. He closed his eyes, leaned back, and listened to the rain. And that endless sound, he could almost hear Anna's voice. Soft, smiling, eternal. You found her, Michael. Now, come home? The next morning, the cafe owner found Michael still sitting there, head bowed, a faint smile on his lips, his hand resting on the table beside an empty cup of coffee. Outside, the sky was clear. The rain had stopped, but on the window, faintly written with a finger before it dried, were the words, Forever, even in the rain. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Rainy Beans Cafe had a new mural now. Painted by Lily Carter, it showed 3 figures walking under a single umbrella. A man, a woman, and a little girl, all smiling, their faces blurred by light. At the bottom she had signed it, dedicated to those who loved through storms. Lily Carter. And whenever the rain returned to Seattle, people swore they could see 3 shadows in the reflection, walking together, smiling through eternity.